because it would be a $36 million dead cap hit. Coach, in the break, we were talking about that Cleveland to Canton line. I thought it was just a cool line from Myles Garrett, but you're saying that was in reference to a Pro Bowl.
Senior Bowl.
Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I think they were talking Senior Bowl, and initially from the Browns camp, the idea is he'll go from Cleveland to Canton, and he'll be there till the end of his career. And even for, I think it was 2 first-round draft picks, they wouldn't consider it. So pretty much taking it off the table that they'd ever want to trade him, which is why I'm sure Myles came out and now has made it public as to what he wants to do. And look, it's terrible news for the Browns because of the message it sends the league. Here's a guy with 102 sacks. He's got, 4 seasons in a row with 14-plus sacks, first time ever in NFL history. And he's seems like a good guy, a good worker, a good part of the program, good part of the community. And he's essentially saying, I don't think we can win here. And it's really difficult for Cleveland to think that they can win there because they can't get out of the Deshaun Watson hole. Right. So they've got this terrible, terrible hole that they can't dig out of, which hurts them in free agency in terms of what they can spend. And then you look at the rest of the division. You got Joe Burrow, you got Lamar, you've got Pittsburgh, which who knows who their quarterback will be, but they're going to be in the mix. And now you're sitting there, you don't have a quarterback, you've got a salary cap issue, and you're looking at everybody else and saying, how are we going to win? How are we going to win? And that's, I'm sure, what Myles is thinking at this point. And I don't know what you do organizationally to get out from this Deshaun Watson situation.
Well, and the reports were coming out even today are that the Browns aren't looking to trade him still, even after his request. But I think that's smart. That's a smart move to put it out there and try to drive up the price as high as you can, because I'm sure Cleveland probably feels like, look, we got the second pick. If we get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, then maybe we have our quarterback situation solved. We're only a year removed from the playoffs. That's a year removed from a good defense. That's probably what they're going to try to sell to Myles. But if they can get one of those quarterbacks, it might be smart just to trade him for a bunch of picks and then build around those guys. Eventually, you're going to get rid of Deshaun. I mean, they're probably already rid of him as far as if they draft another
It's the best thing they could hope for is that Myles Garrett wants out, because it allows them to do what they have to do. Like, listen, you're right. I mean, what's crazy is a year ago, Myles Garrett gave a quote about how the thing every athlete hopes for is to stay with one team forever, bring that team a championship, and that's what he's trying to do. Because a year ago, it felt great vibes.
Right.
Went to the playoffs, had Joe Flacco. Things were cooking. And then reality set in again this year. The Deshaun thing is a disaster. Deshaun probably is never going to play. I don't think Deshaun ever plays football again. He certainly is not going to play for the Browns next year with the Achilles issue. And the clock's ticking for Myles Garrett. Listen, Detroit should just do it.
Yes.
Detroit should do it. And they should give up the 2 first-round picks.
They're all about win now.
I don't think, though, I don't think Cleveland's at a place right now where they want to trade him. I don't think
get a bunch of picks.
But I don't think this is posturing by them. I think in their mind, he's going to be a Cleveland Brown forever, and Myles is going to have to push until he gets out of there. The comments from the Senior Bowl were too fresh and sincere for it to be posturing. Now, organizationally, you're probably going to have to go back in and meet collectively as a staff and with ownership and say, if this guy is going to shoot his way out, what do we do now?
Yeah. So Colin has said this, and I always think I think he's so spot on, where he said, if something gets out, it's because somebody wants it out. Otherwise, things can happen without anyone knowing. Look at the Luka trade to the Lakers. Nobody knew anything about that, and it happened. So Colin has always been on that train about if something gets out. And obviously, this was not like a secret. Like, he made it known. And the reason why it's out, because obviously the Browns are kind of causing problems. They're being resistant to it if Myles Garrett himself is saying, let me get out of here, stop this madness. And football's tough. I mean, especially on defense, you're giving it your all, you're doing everything you can, and yet it's just not enough for this team, and you're wasting your body, you're wasting your prime. Like, it's just hard to kind of just get yourself up and going season after season, just to be nowhere close. That's the reality. Nowhere close to actually being a legitimate contender. And it's tough when you look around the league, when you see, just even in your own division, you see them making moves. Again, the Bengals went to a Super Bowl. The Baltimore Ravens are always in an AFC Championship game last year. A drop away from tying the game up this year against the Bills. You see the Chiefs' success. You see the Bills' success. You see the Eagles go to 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years. You see the Commanders turn everything around in a blink of the eye. I mean, you just look around the league and you constantly see teams get better and compete and contend. And yet you're like, I'm just doing the same thing year after year after year. I mean, even something like Baker Mayfield being traded. I don't know if he was officially traded. I forget at this point. But whatever it was, he goes to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he has success. He's now gone to the playoffs multiple times, beat the Philadelphia Eagles the one year. Then this year, again, came down to a last-second field goal. So, and you're dealing with this whole Deshaun Watson trainer. Like, maybe it's going to be Jameis Winston. Maybe it's going to be Bob Smith, and it's just like, that's exhausting, man. That's exhausting, especially when you put in all the work. And, you don't have any other luxuries. Unfortunately, that's the reality of Cleveland. It's not this big hub of a city. Then, Cleveland has to wrestle with that. And it's a unfortunate reality of the landscape of just the country alone, right? There's different opportunity if you live in Miami or if you live in LA or Philly or New York compared to Cleveland. It just is. And it's an unfortunate reality. So there's not enough to keep him here on top of that. It's one thing if he still got to take advantage of, like, again, living in an absolute beautiful area, great weather, or other business opportunities where he can kind of grow his, post NFL career and type, things of that, You're not getting any of these other benefits to really kind of at least keep him happy. And so when it all just comes down to, okay, well, we're not getting any of these other benefits. Well, are you getting football benefits? And the answer is no. And now are we supposed to play games now with a rookie quarterback? And then he said, oh, this is what the Browns are going to try to sell him on. He's not dumb. He knows where they draft. He knows what quarterbacks are in the draft. He's not dumb. What are they going to sell him on? They're going to just tell him things that he already knows. He doesn't want to be in Cleveland. And if anything, like, now it's like, by doing this, you might find yourself in a situation where teams are going to try to lowball the Browns because they know that Myles Garrett is not happy and doesn't want to be there. So it kind of becomes a difficult situation. So I don't blame Myles Garrett for wanting to leave. Like, again, you could always look at it from multiple ways. We could say, hey, these guys are pros. They get paid millions of dollars, like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. This is just the way it is. Sometimes you got to play for a team or whatever. But it's like, I think it makes a little bit more sense in basketball when their careers are significantly longer compared to football when their careers are very, very short and you truly are always just an injury away from just having, everything just go in the opposite direction. So I understand it. It is the one thing that football really kind of struggles with, because in a perfect world, in a weird kind of way, if you didn't have to deal with injuries, you would put these players on like 2-year deals or something, 3-year deals. And, but it's just obviously you want the long-term deal to be able to at least get the money because of the injury issues and the guaranteed money and all that stuff. But then you find yourself in a situation where you sign a contract, like, I'm going to be with the Browns forever. And then they just can't win. And you're like, I want out. And it's like, well, you signed the contract. You said you wanted to play here. And you're like, yeah, but I thought it was going to be different. And it's like, well, we still paid you a ton of money. So it's like, it's a complicated situation that, all professional sports has to deal with, no matter the league, but especially in football when you're talking about such a high risk of injury, as well as, just not very long careers. And quite frankly, having teams that, for the most part, I know every year we talk about how, new teams make the playoffs and whatnot, but for the most part, it is the same teams rather consistently that are truly competing, truly contending. Very regularly, it's the 49ers, it's the Chiefs, it's the Ravens, it's the Bills, it's the Eagles, right? Like, very regularly do we see, it's like, we know going into this season, next season, there's a great chance that the Ravens are going to be a contender and the Bills a contender and the Eagles and the Chiefs. Like, we know that year after year after year. And then you have the other teams where it's kind of like, who the heck knows, maybe. And then you have the other teams where it's kind of like, no, these teams are awful. And the reality is the Cleveland Browns are, I don't know, maybe. That's what category they're in. I guess if Deshaun Watson plays really great and really can get back to his days in Texans, to the Texans, they can be good. Jameis Winston, he's kind of a wild card, but like, hey, if they can kind of get him comfortable and minimize his interception, like it's always like something. It's like, I don't know. And now even this season, I don't know. Maybe if Shedeur Sanders ends up being a really good quarterback as a rookie, hey, Jaden Daniels was. And it's like, okay, I guess. It's always like, I don't know. Like, listen, I'll make videos about that in this offseason, depending on who they draft. I'll be like, hey, man, if so-and-so can do this and that and get comfortable, I think this team can contend for the division. And it would be accurate. It would be true. But it's still the kind of like, I don't know, man. Let's wait and see. And it's a brutal place to be in when you've already given, nearly a decade of your life practically to doing this and constantly year after year just be the, I don't know. What are we going to do? And it's, it's a tough one. And you could say, oh, well, they're a year removed from the playoffs and Joe Flacco and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But like, you did get rocked. You did get rocked in the playoffs. It was against the Texans, memory serves me correctly. And Joe Flacco threw like a bunch of interceptions. And then this year, you had no chance. Zero. None. And I thought they would be significantly better this year. And there was a lot of energy and hype and excitement because it was like, okay, Deshaun Watson, he's going to be settled now. This defense was really good the year before. This offense just has to be kind of competent. That's really all you need. The offense just to be competent and organized and know how to play situational complementary football. And you're going to be able to get some wins here. Not unlike what the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to do. And then instead you have this. Like, this is the outcome. It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And I think maybe it would make sense for the Browns, because I understand the Browns want to like kind of keep Garrett, keep that, some of that defense and have some of that consistency. But I also think that if you are just hitting the reset button, now I keep wanting to say Jason Garrett, but now Myles Garrett wants to leave. Now the fans will be like, okay, he wanted to leave, so you kind of like, have some of that goodwill with the fans because you're not like taking the brunt of the blame. You get some draft picks, you can rebuild this team. But you got to be smart. You got to be a well-run organization to be able to make these plays, to make these moves, and have them benefit you in the long term, or in the short term, or be able to understand when you have to punt the short term for the long term. And unfortunately for the Browns, they have not really shown that they're capable of doing that. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's a mess. And I feel for Browns fans, because it's a frustrating situation to be like, oh, our team is not that good. This was obviously a disappointing season. And now our best player is like, I want out. It's like, what are you supposed to do with that? It's a tough one. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Myles Garrett wanting to leave the Cleveland Browns? Do you think this is a good idea for the Browns to kind of move on from him and kind of try to rebuild? Or do you think they want to try to convince him to stay, rebuild with him still there? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way. Let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.